Imagine a thought so strange it loops back on itself. A paradox so unsettling it refuses to be solved. A question so infinite it stretches reality to its breaking point. Logic is supposed to make sense. It's supposed to bring clarity. But sometimes it bends. It twists. It folds in on itself, leaving you trapped in a maze where every answer leads to another question. Tonight, we're diving into the deepest, most mind-warping logic traps ever conceived. From paradoxes that defy reason to thought experiments that rewrite reality itself. So close your eyes, let your mind drift, and prepare to fall asleep inside a world where logic unravels. The Sleeping Beauty problem. Imagine this. You sign up for a strange experiment. The scientist explains the rules carefully. On Sunday night, you will be put to sleep. A fair coin will be flipped. If it lands on heads, you will be awakened once on Monday, and then the experiment ends. If it lands on tails, you will be awakened twice, once on Monday and again on Tuesday. But here's the twist. If you are in the tails scenario, before you wake up on Tuesday, your memory of waking up on Monday will be completely erased. Now, the experiment begins. You go to sleep, and then, at some unknown moment, you open your eyes. You are awake. But what day is it? You have no memory of yesterday, no knowledge of what the coin flip result was, and no way of knowing whether this is Monday or Tuesday. You only know one thing for certain. You are here now. The scientist enters the room. They look at you and ask a seemingly simple question. What is the probability that today is Monday? At first, your instincts tell you 50-50. The coin was fair, wasn't it? It had an equal chance of landing on heads or tails. If it landed on heads, you were only woken up on Monday. If it landed on tails, you were woken up on Monday and Tuesday. But right now, in this moment, you don't know which day it is. But then, doubt creeps in. If the coin landed on heads, then you are awake on Monday. That's one possible world. But if it landed on tails, you could be awake on Monday or Tuesday, meaning that in total, across all possible scenarios, you wake up twice as often when tails is the result. This means that, from your perspective, the likelihood of waking up in a tails scenario is twice as high as waking up in a heads scenario. If you were to experience this experiment an infinite number of times, you would find yourself waking up in a tails world twice as often as in a heads world. So suddenly, what seemed like a 50-50 chance no longer looks that way. Instead, it appears that there's a 2/3 probability that the coin landed on tails and only a 1/3 probability that it landed on heads. And if you are twice as likely to be in a tails world, that means today is twice as likely to be Tuesday as it is to be Monday. Your mind loops. The logic seems sound, but it feels wrong. How can a fair coin, something that is purely 50-50, suddenly turn into a 1/3 versus 2/3 split? This paradox splits philosophers, mathematicians, and logicians into two warring camps. One, the halfers, those who say the answer is 1/2, 50%. They argue that the probability of heads was always 50%, and nothing about the way the experiment is structured should change that. From the start, the universe decided whether you would be woken once or twice. You are simply experiencing one of those wake-ups, but that doesn't change the fact that the original probability was fair. 2. The thirders, those who say the answer is 1/3, 33.3%. They argue that because you wake up twice as often in the tails scenario, the probability of this wake-up being a tails wake-up should be higher. If you imagine repeating the experiment many times, you would find yourself in the tails scenario twice as often as the heads scenario, meaning your current experience is more likely to be part of a tails run. Each argument is logically sound. Each feels like the correct answer, yet they cannot both be true. This paradox doesn't just challenge probability, it challenges how we define subjective experience in probability. Does probability apply to the past, the moment the coin was flipped? Or does it apply to the present, the moment you wake up, unaware of history? Here's where things get even stranger. Some argue that the Sleeping Beauty problem is a metaphor for how we experience consciousness itself. If you cannot remember the past, does the past still matter? If your experience is wiped between wake-ups, are you still the same person? Now imagine another version of the experiment. Suppose, instead of just 2 possible wake-ups, the scientist flips a die. If it lands on 1, you wake up just once. But if it lands on 2 through 6, you wake up 5 times. If you suddenly wake up, what should you assume? That the die landed on 1, or that it landed on 2, 6, since those outcomes create more instances of you existing. The paradox goes even deeper when applied to multiverse theories. If infinite versions of you exist, are you more likely to be in a universe where there are more copies of you? This could suggest that we live in a world where more conscious experiences occur, which some theorists use to explain why we find ourselves in a universe capable of supporting life. The Sleeping Beauty problem is more than just a mathematical puzzle. It is a doorway into how we perceive reality. When you wake up, you believe you exist right now. But what if this isn't the first time? What if it isn't even Monday? And if you have no memory of yesterday? Then what proof do you have that yesterday ever existed at all? So now imagine yourself as Sleeping Beauty. Your memories are gone. You have no past, no future, only this moment. You could be in either world, the one where the coin landed on heads and you will never wake up again after today, or the one where it landed on tails and you may wake up again tomorrow. What are the chances today is Monday? Think carefully before you answer, because no matter what you choose, the paradox remains, and your mind is now trapped inside it. The teletransportation paradox. Imagine you are standing in a sleek metallic chamber. Before you, a scientist adjusts the controls of a futuristic teleporter. It's a machine capable of scanning every atom in your body, mapping the precise structure of your brain, your memories, your consciousness, everything that makes you you. Once the scan is complete, it transmits the data at the speed of light to another teleporter located on Mars, where an exact copy of your body is assembled from raw molecules, atom by atom. The scientist turns to you and asks, "Are you ready?" You hesitate. Something feels unsettling. The machine doesn't move you. It copies you. Once the copy is created, the original version of you will be instantly disintegrated. But the copy will wake up on Mars. It will open its eyes and stretch its arms. It will feel just like you. It will remember signing up for the experiment. It will remember stepping into the teleporter. It will feel the same emotions, have the same memories, carry the same personality. And yet, the original version of you will be gone. Now, the question arises, is the copy still you? Your mind races. It feels like it should be you. After all, nothing has changed in the copy's experience. The person waking up on Mars believes they are you. They will continue living as you, making decisions as you, remembering everything you remembered. But is it really you? Or is the original you simply dead, replaced by a perfect doppelganger? The scientist reassures you, from a physical standpoint, nothing is lost. Your body is just atoms, and those atoms have been reconstructed perfectly. Your mind is just electrical signals, and those too have been transferred. But what about consciousness? If you step into the machine, do you continue living? Or do you simply cease to exist while another entity, who believes they are you, carries on? If the copy wakes up and feels completely normal, does that prove that it was always you? Or does it simply prove that the illusion of self can be perfectly recreated? Now let's push this paradox further. Suppose the teleporter malfunctions. Instead of destroying the original copy of you on Earth, it fails to disintegrate you, leaving you standing in the chamber while your perfect copy steps onto the Martian surface. Suddenly, there are two of you. Two identical minds, two identical bodies, both with the same past, the same emotions, the same sense of self. Which one is the real you? Are you both equally you? If so, does that mean you are not tied to a single body? But if one of you is less real than the other, what determines which is the true version? And what happens next? Suppose the original you is then destroyed after the copy is made. Did you survive the process? Or did you experience death while your clones simply carried on believing they are you? The paradox challenges the very concept of personal identity. Is your existence tied to continuity, the uninterrupted flow of your thoughts, memories, and awareness? Or is your existence tied to structure, the specific arrangement of atoms that make up your brain? Imagine another variation. Instead of teleportation, a scientist simply pauses your brain for 1 second and then restarts it. Would you still be the same person? Probably. What about pausing it for 10 minutes? What about a year? What if, instead of pausing it, they destroy your brain and recreate it exactly? Would that still be you? The philosopher Derek Parfit argued that identity is an illusion. that the sense of self is merely a collection of experiences and memories stitched together over time. If that's true, then teleportation is just an extension of everyday life. After all, your brain is already changing every moment. New cells form, old ones die. The person you were 10 years ago no longer exists. So what makes you think the person stepping out of the teleporter is not still you? But others argue that the continuity of consciousness is key. If teleportation breaks that chain, then the original version of you truly dies. The person on Mars is not you, just someone else who believes they are. Now, imagine standing in that chamber, your finger hovering over the button. If you press it, you will appear on Mars in an instant. You will have every memory, every thought, every feeling that you had before. And yet, the version of you standing here now will never open their eyes again. Would you do it? Or does the thought send chills down your spine? Because if this paradox is true, then how do you know the you of today is the same as the you of yesterday? How do you know you haven't already stepped into the machine without even realizing it? Paradox of the unstoppable force versus immovable object. Imagine a universe where two absolute entities exist. On one side, the unstoppable force, an infinite, unbreakable motion that no wall, no barrier, no force of nature can resist. It cannot slow down, it cannot be diverted, it cannot cease. It is pure momentum, an eternal movement without end. On the other side, the immovable object, a presence of absolute stillness. It has infinite weight, infinite resistance, and infinite inertia. No matter how much force is applied, it does not budge. It does not shift. It is an immovable truth, a silent defiance of all motion. And now the inevitable happens. They meet. The moment of impact arrives. The unstoppable force hurtles forward, carrying with it an infinite will to continue. The immovable object stands unshaken, a silent monument that refuses to yield. In that instant, the universe itself holds its breath. Something must happen. But what? If the unstoppable force stops, it was never truly unstoppable. If the immovable object moves, it was never truly immovable. And yet they have met. One of them must change, but by their very definitions, neither can. The logic loops, the contradiction deepens. Some say that this paradox proves the impossibility of absolutes, that true infinite motion and true infinite resistance cannot exist in the same reality. If an unstoppable force exists, then everything must be movable. If an immovable object exists, then everything must be stoppable. Their coexistence is a contradiction. One cancels the other. But what if they can exist together? What if, instead of one overpowering the other, something stranger happens? Perhaps the unstoppable force does not stop, it transforms. It bends, flows, reshapes, much like a river that encounters a boulder, carving its way around over time. Perhaps it adapts, shifting its nature so that it continues without ever truly colliding. Perhaps the immovable object does not move, it absorbs. It takes in the force, disperses it, redirects it. Like a black hole swallowing light, it does not yield, yet the energy never truly stops. It is simply redirected into something new. Or maybe, the instant they collide, the paradox unfolds reality itself. Maybe this moment is the birthplace of something beyond motion and stillness, something neither moving nor still, something that transcends both states. Now, let's apply this paradox to human nature. What happens when an unstoppable dream meets an immovable fear? What happens when an unbreakable will collides with an unchanging world? A person who refuses to surrender meets a society that refuses to change. A mind that seeks infinite progress collides with forces of unshakable tradition. The dreamer, pushing forward endlessly, faces the wall of reality that refuses to move. In this battle, does one destroy the other, or do they create something entirely new? Maybe history is nothing more than the ongoing collision of unstoppable forces and immovable objects. Wars fought between ambition and resistance. Revolutions where progress crashes against deeply rooted beliefs. Moments where someone dares to challenge the unchallengeable, and suddenly the world shifts. Or maybe the answer is balance. Maybe the unstoppable force and the immovable object do not fight, they exist in harmony, each shaping the other. The force bends, the object absorbs, and between them, something greater emerges. Now consider this. What if this paradox has already played out? What if the unstoppable force met the immovable object long ago? What if, in their collision, they unraveled something so fundamental that the entire fabric of reality was born from it? What if their paradox is the reason why nothing in the universe is truly unchanging, yet nothing moves forever? What if they never collided at all, but have been circling each other since the dawn of time, locked in an eternal dance, waiting for the moment when the contradiction finally resolves? Or worse, what if we are simply living in the ripples of their paradox, forever caught between the force that pushes us forward and the weight that holds us still? Buridan's ass. Imagine a donkey standing in the middle of a barren land, exhausted, starving, desperate for sustenance. It looks to its left and sees a pile of hay, golden, fresh, and inviting. It looks to its right and sees another pile of hay, identical in every way. Each pile is the same distance away, equally tempting, equally nourishing. The donkey hesitates. It steps toward the left, then stops. What if the right pile is better? It turns toward the right, but wait, wasn't the left just as good? The dilemma repeats. Each decision seems as valid as the other, so the donkey does nothing. Paralyzed by indecision, it never moves, never eats, and eventually, it dies. This is Buridan's ass, a paradox that exposes the flaws in pure logic. If two choices are perfectly equal, how do we choose? If all rational options are balanced, does that mean no choice can ever be made? Your mind spins. At first, the problem seems absurd. Of course, in real life, the donkey would eventually pick one. It wouldn't just stand there until it starved. But the paradox reveals something deeper, a fundamental weakness in decision-making when logic alone is not enough. Now, apply this to your own life. How many times have you been stuck between two choices, unable to move forward? A job offer that is just as good as another, two equally interesting paths in life, a relationship that could work, but so could staying single. Do you choose the safety of what you know or the excitement of the unknown? Buridan's ass is more than just a fable. It is the struggle of hesitation, the paralysis of indecision, the weight of uncertainty. Imagine a traveler at a crossroads. Two roads stretch before them, one leading left, one leading right. They are identical in every way. There is no map, no guide, no hint of what lies beyond either path. The traveler hesitates. If both roads are equal, is there a reason to choose either? The logical answer is no. The human answer is different. Buridan's ass challenges the idea that rationality alone is enough to make decisions. It suggests that at some point, choice requires something beyond logic, an instinct, a push, an arbitrary action. If we wait for the perfect answer, we may never choose at all. But this paradox becomes even more unsettling when applied to real-world decision-making algorithms. Suppose an artificial intelligence is programmed to always choose the most rational option. If two options are equal, will the AI ever decide? Or will it loop infinitely, trapped in a cycle of indecision? And now, consider this. What if you are already caught in a version of Buridan's ass? What if the reason you haven't moved forward in life is because the choices ahead seem too balanced, too uncertain? What if the real danger isn't making the wrong choice, but never making a choice at all? Now imagine yourself as the donkey. The hay is there, waiting. You don't know which is better. You don't have time to analyze forever. So what do? Do you choose, or do you stand still until the weight of indecision makes the choice for you? The Monty Hall problem. Imagine standing on a brightly lit game show stage. The crowd cheers, the lights flash, and the host, Monty Hall, smiles as he gestures toward three identical doors. Behind one is a brand new car, a gleaming, life-changing reward. Behind the other two? Goats. You have no idea what's behind any of them. The choice is yours. You point at door number 1. Monty doesn't open it just yet. Instead, he does something strange. He opens one of the other two doors, revealing a goat. Now you are left with two doors, the one you originally picked and the one you didn't. And then Monty asks you a single question. Would you like to stay with your choice or switch to the other door? Your instincts scream that it doesn't matter. There are two doors left, and one has the car. So it must be a 50-50 decision, right? Wrong. Logic bends here. If you switch doors, your chances of winning double. Instead of having a 1/2 probability, you suddenly have a 2/3 chance of picking the car. But how? How can switching possibly matter? Your mind resists this truth because it feels unnatural. We aren't wired to think this way. Let's break it down. At the start, you pick a door. Since there are 3 doors, the chance that you originally picked the car is only 1/3. That means the chance that the car was behind one of the two other doors was 2/3. Now here's the trick. Monty knows where the car is, and he will always open a goat door. That means he isn't introducing randomness, he's giving you new information. If the car was behind one of the two doors you didn't pick, which was originally a 2/3 chance, then switching will always win. So if you stick with your original choice, you win 1/3 of the time. But if you switch, you win 2/3 of the time. And yet, most people refuse to believe this. Even mathematicians have doubted it. The human brain simply doesn't like counterintuitive logic. The Monty Hall problem reveals something deeper about decision-making, how we handle probability, risk, and the weight of our first choices. Think about this in real life. How often do we stick with a decision simply because it feels like abandoning it would be a gamble? How often do we assume that our first instinct is as good as any other option? We resist switching because it makes us feel like we were wrong to begin with. But being wrong at first doesn't mean we have to stay wrong forever. Imagine you're in a situation where switching might be the best option. A job you've held onto for too long, a belief you've never questioned, a relationship you fear leaving because it feels like a 50-50 risk. The Monty Hall problem isn't just a mathematical trick. It's a metaphor. It's about knowing when to let go, when to adapt, when to override the illusion of fairness and trust the numbers. So now, imagine yourself back on that stage. The lights still flash, the crowd still cheers. You're staring at two doors, one with a goat, one with the car. Monty looks at you. The question is simple. Do you stay or do you switch? And now that you know the truth, what will you do? Laplace's demon, imagine a being that knows everything, not just the past, not just the present, but everything that will ever happen. It sees every atom, every molecule, every electrical pulse inside your brain. It knows where they were yesterday, where they are now, and where they will be in 1,000 years. With this knowledge, Laplace's demon calculates the future. Not just a rough prediction, not just a best guess, a perfect script. Every word you will ever speak, every thought you will ever have, every choice you believe you are making freely. But here's the nightmare. If this being exists, free will is an illusion. Right now, you feel like you could make an unpredictable decision. You could stand up and do something completely random. You could say a word you've never said before. You could throw your phone, break your routine, prove that you are not predictable. But you'd be wrong. Laplace's demon would have already factored in your attempt to rebel. It would know the exact neurons firing in your brain, the exact psychological reaction you would have to this idea. Even your resistance to this paradox is part of the calculation. So if it's right, you have never actually made a choice in your life. Every time you thought you were deciding something, you were simply following the script, the only script that was ever possible. But what if you tried to break free? What if you made a decision that even a godlike intelligence couldn't predict? What if you did something so chaotic that no amount of physics could determine it beforehand? That doesn't save you either. Because if randomness exists in the universe, then your choices aren't really yours. They are just random events happening inside your brain. You aren't acting out of free will. You are just rolling dice in a game you don't control. So now, here's the real question. Are you a machine? Not a literal robot, but a biological system, one that simply reacts to stimuli, processes inputs, and produces outputs. A machine made of flesh and neurons, blindly following the rules of physics, just like a river follows gravity. And if that's true, then what does it mean to be you? If every action you take was predetermined long before you were born, then does it even make sense to say you are thinking at all? Or are you just a passenger watching a movie that was scripted before the universe even existed? But here's the real nightmare. If you have no free will, why does it feel like you do? Why do you feel uncertainty? Why do you struggle with decisions? If everything is set in stone, why does it feel like you have the power to shape your own future? Maybe Laplace's demon is real, and every moment of your life is just an equation being solved. Or maybe something deeper is going on. Maybe free will exists in a way we don't yet understand. Maybe there's a loophole in the script, something the demon can't calculate, something beyond physics itself. So now ask yourself, what will you do next? Think carefully, because whatever you do, Laplace's demon already knew. Quantum entanglement and non-locality. Imagine splitting an object in half, taking one piece to the farthest edge of the universe while leaving the other here on Earth. Now imagine that the instant you touch one half, the other instantly reacts. No delay, no signal traveling between them, just instantaneous change. This isn't science fiction. This is quantum entanglement. Two particles, born together, forever linked, no matter how far apart they drift. Change one, and the other changes too. Faster than light, faster than thought, as if space itself doesn't exist between them. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. He refused to believe it. How could two things, separated by millions of light years, behave as if they were still in the same place? Was reality broken? But here's the unsettling truth. It's real. We've tested it. We've entangled particles in labs, separated them by kilometers, and the result is always the same. No matter the distance, they remain connected, and yet there's no signal passing between them. No message, no delay, no speed limit, just change, instant and absolute. That shouldn't be possible. Nothing moves faster than light, and yet somehow entangled particles behave as if distance doesn't matter, as if the universe itself bends around them. So what's really happening? One theory suggests that space isn't what we think it is. Imagine two dots on a flat sheet of paper. Now crumple the paper. Those dots, once separated, might now be touching. What if the universe is like that? What if things that seem far apart are actually still connected in some hidden dimension? Or worse, what if distance itself is an illusion? If quantum entanglement is real, then separation is meaningless. Objects that should be light years apart are still part of the same invisible system. The universe isn't a vast emptiness. It's a network, one where everything is linked even if we can't see the threads. And here's the thought that changes everything. What if this doesn't just apply to particles? What if you are entangled? Because think about it. The universe began as a single point. Before the Big Bang, everything, every atom, every particle, every force was one. Then it expanded. Things drifted apart. Stars formed, planets formed, you formed. But what if the connection never fully broke? What if, in some hidden way, every particle in your body is still connected to the universe? What if the reason you feel energy in a room, the reason you sense someone watching you, the reason you sometimes just know something without explanation, is because you are still entangled with everything around you? What if the universe isn't just matter drifting through space, but a single, connected entity, experiencing itself through billions of different perspectives? And if that's true, then here's the real question. Have you ever truly been alone? What if every thought you've ever had, every decision you've ever made, wasn't just yours, but was influenced by something greater? What if the very act of observing, of thinking, of existing, is part of an unseen network, something beyond our comprehension? Entanglement suggests that reality isn't local, that things don't have to be next to each other to be connected, that space itself might just be an illusion we haven't yet learned to see through. And if that's true, then where does you end and the universe begin? What if consciousness isn't trapped inside your brain? What if your thoughts, your emotions, your very sense of self aren't locked inside your skull, but are part of something bigger, something spread across the universe like an entangled web? Maybe that's why we feel connections to people before we even speak to them. Maybe that's why moments of déjà vu feel so real. Maybe that's why we sometimes sense things before they happen, because in some hidden way, we are still entangled with everything. And what if death isn't an ending? What if when your body fades, the particles that once made you up remain entangled, forever a part of the universe, just in a different form? Maybe quantum entanglement isn't just a strange phenomenon. Maybe it's a clue, a whisper from the universe, a sign that we were never separate to begin with. Time travel consistency principle. Imagine you step into a time machine, dial the settings back a few decades, and press the button. The machine hums, reality warps, and in an instant, you're no longer in the present. You're standing in the past. Everything feels surreal. You could do anything. Change history. Rewrite the world as you see fit. Then, a dangerous thought creeps in. What happens if I kill my grandfather before he meets my grandmother? It's simple, right? He dies. Your father is never born, which means you are never born, which means you never step into the time machine in the first place. But if you never traveled back, then you never killed your grandfather, which means he did live, your father was born, and you did step into the time machine. An infinite loop, a paradox, a reality that cannot exist. But what if time doesn't allow contradictions? What if the past is fixed, untouchable, unchangeable? This is the time travel consistency principle. The idea that no matter what you do in the past, it was always meant to happen that way. If you go back in time, then every action you take was already part of history. You can't break time because you were always part of it. So maybe you do try to kill your grandfather, but the gun jams. Or you trip at the last second. Or, in some ironic twist, you cause the exact series of events that leads to your grandparents' meeting in the first place. You weren't a disruptor of history. You were always part of it. Think about what this means. If time is truly self-consistent, then free will doesn't exist in a time-traveling universe. Every action you take in the past was predetermined, already woven into the fabric of history. You feel like you have a choice. You feel like you can change things. But the truth? Whatever you do was the only thing you could have done. Now let's push this further. Imagine you go back in time and hand Shakespeare a copy of his complete works. He copies them word for word and publishes them. Now, who wrote them? Did Shakespeare create them? Or did you? The words never had an original creator. They simply exist in a loop. Or picture this. A scientist goes back in time and gives their younger self the solution to a problem. That younger version publishes the answer without ever actually solving it. Where did the knowledge come from? This is called a causal loop, a self-contained cycle of events with no clear beginning. Information, ideas, even physical objects can exist without ever being created. So now, think about this. What if this has already happened? What if some of the greatest ideas in history, the strangest, most impossible advancements, never had an origin? What if they were given to us by time travelers from a future that hasn't happened yet? Think about all the moments in history that don't make sense. Discoveries that seem too advanced for their time. Works of art with no clear influences. What if they were the result of a closed loop? And here's the real mind-bender. If the time travel consistency principle is real, then every single moment in history, every event, every decision was always going to happen exactly as it did. The wars, the breakthroughs, the rise and fall of civilizations, the people you met, the path you chose. Which means that right now, in this very moment, you are simply living out a script. Not because the future is waiting to be written, but because it already was. And if that's true, then you have never made a single free choice in your life. Every action, every thought, every moment, all of it was predetermined, already locked into place. Even your deepest struggles, your biggest decisions, what if they were never truly yours to make? But here's where things get even stranger. If the past cannot be changed, then neither can the future. Right now, you believe you can alter the course of your life, make a different choice, turn left instead of right, take a risk instead of playing it safe. But what if you can't? What if, no matter what decision you make, it was always the decision you were going to make? What if the version of you in the future already exists, fixed, unchangeable, just like the past? You might think you have control, but in a self-consistent timeline, every choice you make is just an illusion. You aren't shaping the future. You're simply playing out a role that was always meant to happen. Think about that. If this theory is true, then right now, at this very moment, you are exactly where you were always meant to be. Every mistake, every regret, every triumph, it was all inevitable. And that means something even more terrifying. The future is already written. Not just your future, everyone's. The people you love, the people you haven't met yet, the people who haven't even been born. Everything is on a fixed path, a script that has already been performed, but which you are only just now experiencing. So, if you could step into that time machine again, would you? Would you try to change something, knowing that whatever you do was always going to happen? Would you resist, knowing resistance was part of the plan? Or would you accept the truth that you were never truly free to begin with? And if that's the case, then what is free will? Maybe it's nothing more than the feeling of choice in a world where choice never existed at all. The Anthropic principle. Imagine waking up in a universe that seems perfectly designed for you. The air is breathable, the temperature is just right, gravity holds you firmly to the ground, and the stars burn at precisely the right intensity to allow life to thrive. But stop and ask yourself, why? Why does the universe seem so perfectly tuned for life? Why do the laws of physics, so delicate, so precise, happen to be exactly what they need to be for conscious beings to exist? This is the Anthropic principle. The idea that the universe appears fine-tuned for life, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to observe it. At first, it sounds obvious. Of course, we exist in a universe that supports life, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation. But the deeper you go, the stranger it becomes. Because when you look at the raw numbers, the very existence of life should be impossible. The strength of gravity, the charge of an electron, the expansion rate of the universe. If any of these were even slightly different, by just a fraction of a percent, everything would fall apart. Stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't exist, life would never have had a chance. And yet, here we are. So what explains this? Why did the universe get everything just right? Some say it's pure chance, that out of the infinite possibilities, we just happened to get lucky. But the numbers suggest something else. The odds of the universe randomly landing on the perfect settings for life are so astronomically small that it seems almost impossible. One possibility? Design. Maybe the universe was deliberately fine-tuned. Maybe some higher intelligence set the rules with the specific goal of creating life. Some call it God. Some call it a simulation. Either way, it suggests that our existence was intentional. But there's another possibility, one even stranger. What if our universe isn't the only one? What if there are infinite universes, each with different physical laws, different constants, different realities? Most of them would be barren, empty, inhospitable to life. A cosmic wasteland of failed possibilities. But in a few rare universes, the conditions would be just right. And in those universes, intelligent beings like us would naturally emerge. And here's where it gets unsettling. If that's true, then our existence isn't special at all. We just happen to live in one of the few universes where life is possible. Because those are the only universes where anyone is around to ask these questions. It's not that the universe was designed for us. It's that only in the universes where life emerges does anyone wonder about why it exists. Think about that. It means the universe didn't have to be this way. It could have been different. It could have been empty. It could have been a place where consciousness never had a chance. And yet, you are here, reading this, thinking about it, existing. Which raises the most mind-bending question of all. Was the universe designed for you? Or did you emerge because you were bound to exist in one of the rare places where existence was possible? Because if there are other universes, countless others, then what else might be out there? What if somewhere, in another reality, another version of you is asking the exact same question? What if, in some universes, life never formed, while in others, it exists in ways beyond our comprehension? And what if this means that nothing is truly unique? Every decision you make, every path you take, what if they all exist somewhere? What if, in another universe, there's a version of you that made the opposite choice, that lived a completely different life? And here's the thought that truly breaks reality. If there are infinite universes, then somewhere out there, in some alternate version of existence, someone else is reading this exact sentence. The problem of the first cause. Imagine standing at the edge of time, staring into the past. Every event, every moment, every action, all of it had a cause. Your existence was caused by your parents, their existence by theirs, stretching back through history, through evolution, through the formation of the earth, through the birth of stars. You keep following the chain, tracing every cause back further and further, until you reach what seems like the ultimate beginning, the Big Bang. And then the real question hits you. What caused the Big Bang? For everything that happens, something had to make it happen. If the universe exploded into existence, what triggered the explosion? What came before it? Where did all the energy, all the matter, all the laws of physics come from? You reach back further and further expecting an answer, but you never find one. Instead, you run into an infinite loop. If everything requires a cause, then what caused the first thing? The problem is unsolvable, because every answer creates a new question. If the universe had a beginning, then what caused that beginning? If something created the universe, what created that thing? If nothing created it, then how can something exist without a cause? Every possibility seems to collapse under its own weight, spiraling into paradox. Maybe the universe has always existed, stretching infinitely backward in time with no true starting point. But can something really have no beginning? Everything in our experience has a starting moment. A book has a first page. A journey has a first step. How can the entire universe be an exception? The idea of infinite regression, one cause leading to another forever, is disturbing. It suggests that there is no foundational truth, just an endless sequence with no origin. Our minds aren't built to comprehend infinity, and staring into an infinite past feels like falling into a bottomless void. If an infinite chain of causes makes no sense, then maybe there was a first cause, something that created everything else but was itself uncaused. Many religions claim this is God, a being outside of time and space, something that simply exists. But this only shifts the question. If God exists without a cause, why can't the universe itself do the same? And if God created everything, what created God? Saying that something is beyond explanation doesn't answer the question. It only moves the mystery one step higher. If neither an infinite past nor an uncaused creator makes sense, then maybe the universe came from nothing. No cause, no force, just existence appearing out of pure void. But this is just as unsettling. How can nothing suddenly become something? If there was once absolute nothingness, then why did anything ever happen? Nothingness should have just remained nothing forever. And yet, here we are. The very fact that something exists rather than nothing at all is perhaps the greatest mystery of all. But what if cause and effect itself is an illusion? We assume that everything must have a cause, because that's how things work within the universe. But what if that rule only applies inside the universe, not to the universe itself? A fish, born in water, assumes water must exist everywhere because it has never known anything else. What if we are trapped in the same kind of thinking? What if cause and effect is just a rule within time, but not a rule of reality itself? Maybe existence simply is, with no need for a cause, no first moment, no creation, just an eternal presence beyond human understanding. Some physicists propose something even stranger. What if the universe caused itself? It sounds impossible. How can something create itself before it exists? But some theories suggest that time itself is not linear. What if the universe is caught in a loop, where the future and past are linked in ways we don't yet understand? What if the universe was born from something that it will one day create? This breaks everything we think we know about logic, but so does the idea of existence itself. No answer is satisfying. If the universe has existed forever, how? If it was created by something else, what created that? If it came from nothing, why? Each answer leads only to deeper questions. Questions that might never have an end. The very nature of reality, why there is something rather than nothing, is a mystery so deep that perhaps it was never meant to be solved. And yet, here you are, trapped in existence, a product of a universe that may never have had a beginning, a universe that should not exist, and yet, it does. The non-existence of the present. Imagine trying to grasp a single moment in time. You snap your fingers, but by the time the sound reaches your ears, the moment is already gone. You try to focus on the now, but the second you do, it slips into the past. No matter how hard you try, you can never catch it, like trying to hold on to water as it runs through your fingers. So here's the question. Does the present even exist? We think of time as a flowing river, carrying us from past to future. We assume we are inside this river, moving along with it, moment by moment. But when you try to pinpoint the exact present moment, it has no real duration. The past is gone, the future hasn't happened yet, and the present is just a razor-thin line between the two. So thin that it might not even be real. If the present is just a boundary, a fleeting moment that vanishes before we can even register it, then what exactly are we experiencing? If every now instantly becomes then when are we? Your entire life is a sequence of moments that disappear as soon as they arrive. Right now, you feel like you are in the present, but that's just an illusion. By the time your brain registers this moment, it has already become the past. You are always living in a delay, reacting to reality that has already happened, chasing a now that never truly arrives. But if the present doesn't exist, then neither does the past or future. The past is just a collection of memories, fading echoes of something that no longer exists. The future is just possibilities, unrealized and unreachable. But if the past is gone and the future isn't real yet, then what's left? If time is a river, then you are floating in a boat that is constantly disintegrating behind you and rebuilding itself in front of you. The past disappears. The future is unknown. The present is an illusion. Some theories suggest that time isn't a flowing river at all. It's a vast, unchanging structure. Imagine a book already written from beginning to end. Every page exists at once, every event already in place. The only reason we experience time as moving is because our consciousness moves through it, moment by moment, like a projector shining light on a film reel. If that's true, then time doesn't actually pass. Everything that will ever happen has already happened. You aren't moving through time, you are just experiencing different slices of an unchanging reality, one frame at a time. You are not truly living, you are just playing out a predetermined sequence, unable to change anything, unable to step outside the book that has already been written. But what if time isn't a structure? What if only the present is real and the past and future are illusions created by our minds? That would mean that the entire universe is constantly being destroyed and recreated in every instant. The you reading this sentence is not the same you that existed a moment ago. Every fraction of a second, the universe refreshes itself, erasing what came before and creating a brand new version, as if reality itself is flickering in and out of existence. If the present is an illusion, then so is identity. If time is constantly wiping everything clean, then who are you, really? Are you the sum of all your past moments? Or are you just this moment, right now, independent from everything before it? And here's the most unsettling thought. If the present doesn't truly exist, then how are you experiencing it? If every moment is instantly vanishing, then why does it feel like you are here, right now, existing in a continuous stream of time? Maybe the present is real, but not in the way we think. Maybe time isn't something we move through. Maybe it's something we create. Maybe the only reason time feels real is because we are observing it. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? If a moment in time exists but no one is there to experience it, does it truly happen? Maybe the act of awareness is what creates time itself. And if that's true, then time only exists because you are here to observe it. The universe only exists because you are aware of it. Everything you see, hear, feel, all of it is just a construct of your own perception. But that leads to an even deeper question. If time needs you to exist, then what happens when you no longer exist? What happens when your consciousness is gone? Does time stop? Does the universe vanish? If no one is around to experience it, does time itself collapse? Maybe time is not some external force carrying us forward. Maybe time is something that lives inside us, a construct of the mind, a projection of consciousness. And if that's true, then maybe you were never really born. Maybe you will never truly die. Maybe time was never real to begin with. The identity of indiscernibles. Imagine waking up one day to discover that overnight you had been replaced with an identical copy. Every cell, every thought, every memory, exactly the same as before. Would you even know? If nothing about you had changed, if your mind remained intact, if your memories were perfectly preserved, then how would you prove that you were the same person as yesterday and not just a flawless replica? This is the identity of indiscernibles. The idea that if two things are completely identical in every possible way, then they are not two things at all. They are one. It seems like a simple concept. If there's no difference, then why treat them as separate? But when you apply this to yourself, reality starts to break apart. You are made of atoms, but those atoms are not unique. The carbon in your bones is the same as the carbon in the air. The hydrogen in your blood is the same as the hydrogen in the stars. There is nothing special about the physical material that makes up you. So what actually makes you, you? Imagine a machine that can scan and recreate every molecule of your body, placing an identical version of you somewhere else. The copy wakes up, remembers everything you remember, thinks everything you think, and believes without a doubt that it is you. But if this duplicate is truly identical, then what makes it different from the original? If someone were to destroy the old version and leave the new one, would anything actually be lost? Or would it just be a perfect continuation, indistinguishable from the original? Now consider this. What if this has already happened? Every second, your body is changing. Old cells die, new cells replace them. The neurons in your brain rewire. Your thoughts shift, memories fade, new ones take their place. The you of today is not the you of yesterday. If we define identity by continuity, then what happens when every piece of you has changed? At what point do you stop being the original? Take it a step further. What if, instead of replacing cells over years, your entire body was instantly replaced with new atoms, ones arranged in the exact same pattern? Would you still be you? If yes, then why does the you from a decade ago still feel like the same person, even though none of the original atoms remain? If no, then at what exact point did you stop being yourself? Was it the moment a single atom was swapped, the moment 50% of your body changed, the moment every cell was new? Now let's remove the physical aspect entirely. What if your body didn't change, but your mind did? What if all of your memories were erased and replaced with someone else's? Would you still be you? If identity is tied to memory, then are you really the same person you were as a child? The person who first learned to walk, who cried on their first day of school, who believed in things you no longer believe? Are they still alive inside you, or did they die as you changed? If a person's memories and personality can shift enough over time that they become someone completely different, then does personal identity even exist? And now here's where it gets terrifying. Imagine that every night while you sleep, you die. Your brain shuts down, your consciousness disappears. In the morning, a new version of you wakes up, one that has all your memories, believes it is the same person, but is actually just a continuation of something that no longer exists. If you knew for certain that this was true, that every night the you of today completely vanishes and a perfect copy takes its place, would it change anything? Because if there is no difference between the copy and the original, then does it even matter? Or does that mean you have never truly existed at all? Only a series of versions, each convinced that it was the first? Now, think about the concept of teleportation. If you step into a machine that disassembles your body, transmits your information across space, and rebuilds you atom by atom on the other side, is the person who steps out really you, or just a copy who believes they are you? If identity is just a pattern, then does it even matter which version of you is the real one? If two perfect copies of you existed at the same time, which one is the original? Or are they both you? And if both are you, then how do you know that you aren't already one of those copies? What if the real you is long gone, replaced by a perfect replica every second of your life, and you never noticed? Maybe you are just a temporary construct. Maybe you were never a singular entity at all. Maybe consciousness is nothing more than a flickering illusion, a pattern playing out for a moment before it fades away. And if that's true, then who were you yesterday? And more importantly, who will you be tomorrow? The lottery paradox. Imagine you buy a lottery ticket. You hold it in your hands, staring at the numbers, knowing exactly how the game works. Millions of tickets have been sold and only one will win. The odds are staggering. 1 in 10 million, maybe even worse. You know with near certainty that your ticket will lose. But you also know that someone will win. That's a fact. One of the tickets out of the millions sold will be chosen. Yet you apply the same logic to every individual ticket. The odds for each are the same, so you conclude that every single ticket will lose. And that's where reality collapses. You have used flawless logic. You are justified in believing that each ticket will lose. But at the same time, you know that one of them must win. You have reached a contradiction. How can you rationally believe that every ticket will lose when you know that one of them must win? This is the lottery paradox, a paradox that exposes a fundamental flaw in the way we reason. It shows that even perfect logic can lead to an impossible conclusion. The problem isn't just about lotteries, it's about belief itself. It shows that we can have justified, rational beliefs that, when put together, become irrational. You believe each ticket will lose, but you cannot logically believe that all of them will lose. But if you don't believe that all will lose, then how can you justify believing that any one of them will? The paradox exists because probability doesn't behave the way our minds expect. We like certainty. We like to say things are either true or false, right or wrong. But probability is messy. It forces us to deal with gradients of truth, shades of belief, things that are almost certainly true, but not quite. If this were just about lotteries, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But the implications go far beyond gambling. This paradox applies to nearly everything we believe. Imagine a courtroom. A defendant is on trial for a crime. The evidence against them is weak. You examine it carefully and decide they are probably innocent. Now imagine another defendant in a different case. The evidence against them is also weak. You conclude that they too are probably innocent. You apply this logic to every weak case, always assuming innocence, always believing that a conviction requires stronger proof. Individually, each belief makes sense. But you also know that, statistically, some guilty people slip through the cracks. If you believe each weak case results in an innocent person, then you are forced to believe that all defendants in weak cases are innocent, even though you know that some of them must be guilty. How can you justify believing in every individual case that the person is innocent, while also knowing that, overall, some of them must be guilty? The same paradox infects knowledge itself. You believe your memory is reliable. After all, you remember your own life, your experiences, what happened yesterday. But you also know that people misremember things all the time. You've seen others recall things incorrectly. You've been wrong before. So how can you trust your memory while also knowing that memory in general is unreliable? Or consider the news. You trust reputable sources. You believe what they say is true. But you also know that the news sometimes gets things wrong, that misinformation spreads, that even the most careful journalists make mistakes. If you believe each individual article is true, but also believe that, statistically, some articles must be false, then what do you really believe? The lottery paradox reveals a fundamental flaw in human reasoning. We live in a world where almost nothing is 100% certain, yet we still need to make decisions. We rely on probability, but probability allows contradictions. We are forced to believe things that make sense individually, but break down when applied universally. So now, ask yourself, do you really know anything for certain? Or are you just playing the odds, hoping that your beliefs, like a winning ticket, happen to be right?